This is How America Was Stolen, Episode 19. By the time Native nations began rising together, the colonies were already preparing for something far darker. Episode 19 marks the beginning of a war so violent, so devastating, that it reshaped how settlers fought Native people forever. A war that taught the colonies one brutal lesson. Mercy slowed expansion. Fear accelerated it. This is the moment colonial violence became total. Tensions in New England had been building for years. Settlers pushed deeper into native homelands, demanded submission to colonial law, and punished tribes that refused. They forced conversions. They imposed taxes. They outlawed native customs. What they called order, native nations experienced as suffocation. And then came the breaking point. When a native leader was humiliated, imprisoned, and died under colonial custody, the message was clear. Native leadership itself was now a target. The response was swift. Native warriors launched coordinated attacks against frontier settlements, not to conquer, but to push back, to reclaim space, to force the settlers to stop expanding. The settlers called it rebellion. History would later call it King Philip's War. What followed was not a war between armies. It was a war against existence. Settler militias were ordered to destroy native villages completely, burn homes, kill livestock, ruin crops, and leave nothing behind. They didn't just fight warriors, they hunted families. Entire communities were wiped out in days. Women and children were killed or sold into slavery. Survivors were forced into camps or pushed off their land. Native prisoners were shipped to the Caribbean and sold like cargo. This was not chaos, this was policy. The colonies learned something terrifying during this war. Total destruction worked. Villages that resisted vanished. Territories cleared quickly filled with settlers. Fear spread faster than any treaty ever could. The cost was enormous on both sides, but the imbalance was clear. Native nations lost not just fighters, but elders, children, culture, and land. By the war's end, entire tribes in New England had been erased. Not defeated. Erased. Settlers emerged from the war transformed. They were no longer inexperienced colonists. They were hardened killers. They had learned how to wage war against civilians. They had learned how to break resistance by targeting survival itself, and they would never forget these lessons. The tactics used here, scorched earth, forced removal, mass execution, became standard practice in later conflicts across the continent. What happened in New England would echo for centuries. For native nations, the loss was immeasurable. Sacred lands were gone, languages silenced, bloodlines broken. But the spirit of resistance did not die. It went underground. It adapted. It waited. Because native people understood something the settlers did not. Empires rise fast, but memory lasts longer. This episode exposes one of the darkest truths of American history. The colonies did not stumble into genocide. They practiced it. They refined it. They passed it down, and they would use it again. In Episode 20, we move forward into the aftermath, how the colonies used this war as proof that native nations could be destroyed, and why expansion accelerated faster than ever after.